So I got this 35 millimeter to fit. I had to pound it on. See, it's somewhat loose, so I had to pound it on with a hammer, so that means we're gonna have to pound it off with a hammer. So what I'm gonna do is leave this right here, and I'm gonna throw the tire back on. That way, for the sake of the video, I'll torque it so you know what to do when torquing it. So here's my 33 going back on, and that's what's jacked the front of the truck back up. Pull your jack stand out. Make sure you put another jack stand under the truck. Try and line your tire back up with your lug studs. I know they're in there somewhere. There they are. Get that to fit on there. You see the socket comes right through the middle. Tighten the lug nuts back on, and then we'll torque everything to spec. Now I got them started. Get the torque or the impact. Snug them down in the cross pattern. And now I'll snug them down just a little more, actually. And I really don't know what size fits this. I have a 22 millimeter here, so I'm gonna grab the torque wrench and we'll torque these down. Okay, so we got our Harbor Freight torque wrench. Not the best torque wrench in the world, but it works. So, pull it out. And it should be in foot-pounds. I'm pretty sure the Harbor Freight ones are. Yep, so these are foot-pounds. And lug nuts are meant to be torqued at 140 foot-pounds on a Silverado. So, we're gonna loosen up the screw on the back. And we're gonna turn this down to 140. Right now, we're at about 90, so we gotta crank it in a ways. Now, right here, not sure if you can see very well. I'll get the light up here. So, right here, you can see this says 150 right there. So right now where that 0 is, we're at 150. So we got to go back down because I passed it. Back to 0, which is right there. So that's what we're at. 140. You can see the 140 on this side now. We're at 140 right now, and we're going to torque it down. But first, then you gotta tighten this down so it stays at 140. First, I gotta let the truck off the jack. Move your jack stands out of the way. You don't have to let your truck all the way off the jack, just enough to where your tire doesn't spin. So we're gonna get our torque wrench, put it on the lug nut here. That one's 140. Check this one. 140. Remember, cross pattern. So your tire stays on there in the right spot. If you ever use a torque wrench, that clicking noise is to tell you to stop. Don't tighten anymore. Right there. I like to hit it twice just to be sure. Right there. Okay, so on the axle nut itself, where that big socket is 177 foot-pounds. So we're going to crank the torsion bar down to 177 foot-pounds. That's what I found most on the internet, was 177. The problem is my torque wrench only goes to 150, so we're gonna crank it as far as it goes. It stops right there, which would be probably 180 or 165 or so. So we're just gonna do that and see where it gets us. I'm gonna have to stand on it to get it to go. Right there. So we're gonna take that off now, and that's torqued. We'll loosen that back up. And for the inside nuts that go on the flange, I'll show you in a minute, are 60. So we're gonna crank this back down. 60 is right here, so should be right about there is 60. So tighten that down. Grab the 15 millimeter. We'll go onto the truck in a minute here to do those. First, I gotta get this socket off of here. I'm gonna grab the hammer and try and pound it off. Just like that. That 35 millimeter came right off. And now we just gotta put the cap on the axle nut so it doesn't rust out. And of course, the axle nut cap went all the way down the driveway. So you put that on, lightly tap it in place. You don't want to put a big dent in it or anything. It's not really a showpiece anyways, but the shaft's real close to it, so you don't want to dent it too far. And then we grab our cover and slide that back on. So we're gonna put our cover back on. Just goes like this. Now, I don't know if you guys have the same rims or aftermarket or whatever, but these, I normally just take the socket and just slide this on with the socket. Tighten them down, not too tight to where you strip them, but tight enough to where it won't fall off. Now that's done, we're gonna go onto the truck with our torque wrench, tighten down the CV axle bolts. Okay, so now we're under the truck. The tire's still on the ground so that I have no play in the tire, so this will tighten right down. There's 60 foot-pounds. And then we're gonna go to the next bolt here. I'm actually gonna do this one in a cross pattern too, so I'm gonna have to lift the truck back up and set it back down. And we're gonna go completely upside down to get the next stud. It should be that one there. I'm gonna set the jack back down just enough to take pressure off of that tire. And we're gonna tighten this bolt down now. So you just repeat this process through all the flange studs, and you're finished. So we got everything done here. Got all the bolts tightened, everything figured out. And now it's time to go for a test drive and make sure we got no vibration and no problems. We're gonna take the truck for a test drive here after doing the new CV axle on the passenger side. Climb the truck and go for a test drive. Had it running here for a minute because it's kind of chilly out, so bear with me if the camera's kind of shaky and I don't really have a tripod mount in here or anything. So we gotta run to the store and drop off the old CV axle for the core charge It's only a $5 core charge, and I'm not going to keep the old one. It's still intact, but I don't really need a spare, so I'm just not going to keep it.